Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. JJ Redick says Luka Doncic is going to be the primary guy. The offense is running through him, Andy. Any problems with that potentially? We'll talk about it next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free and never behind paywall. Of course, Andy, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 32,000 subscribers are going and all talking about the embarrassment of riches that JJ Redick has in front of him as he figures out how the Lakers offense is going to operate. We'll get into that in just a second. After we tell you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Imagine, Andy, being JJ Redick and saying, you're looking at your roster and you say, we need to run the offense through someone. You know, it's the common thing you talk about in the NBA. And you look at Austin Reaves, you're like, that's a pretty good option. He's really grown into that role this year. I think, though, we can do better. And you look at LeBron James and you say to yourself, well, we've got LeBron. Let's run the offense through LeBron. And then you stop and you say to yourself, no, we've actually still got potentially a better option available to us than LeBron James. And that, Andy, is Luka Doncic. And that is where the offense is going to go.
After last night's win over Denver, which featured the first night of Luka Doncic really looking like Luka Doncic, looking like, as a few guys referred to him, a quote-unquote killer out on the court. JJ said afterwards, quote, I think Luka needs to be the guy that controls the offense, and Bron and AR, because we're going to stagger everybody, they're going to have their times be on the ball. But all three of those guys are very intelligent basketball players, and we can create mismatches. We can get teams in the blender. And first of all, in terms of the usage from last night's game, Luka's was very small sample size, only played 4 games with the Lakers, but at 36, the highest mark for him as a Laker. LeBron came in at 28, Austin Reaves 23. And for all three of them, those are higher numbers than what it's been in the previous 3 games with LeBron, Luka, and Reaves. But in terms of the separation, that's more or less in line with how it's been, given a point here or there. It's largely been Luka about, I don't know, anywhere 5 to 8 percentage points higher than LeBron, who's 5 to 8 percentage points higher than Reaves. Mm-hmm. And if you are looking to both establish what Luka can do for this team here and for the future, and also set up a hierarchy that, quite frankly, makes sense given where everyone is in their respective careers and talent levels, this sounds about right. Like this feels like the logical conclusion between the two, especially between the three, but especially when you really think about with LeBron, it's not like he's going to get reduced into some type of, shotgun riding, spectator. It's just you have to both come up with these designations and come up with an order to things. And given that the Lakers only have, I believe, 27 games left this season, you don't have time for it to organically turn into the thing that it will. You have to declare what it will be. And therefore, JJ is just cutting to the chase of, frankly, what everybody expected anyway.
Well, I look at it this way. I mean, the biggest difference between Denver on Saturday and the other games is Luka played really well, like you say, it looked like Luka, and then obviously the minutes go up, and so you are less on a minutes restriction. He's looking far more comfortable. The energy was there. The fluidity in his movement was much better. All of that stuff.
But really quick, even then, he still had the highest usage rate by a pretty significant mark, playing fewer minutes than LeBron and Reaves.
I understand, but
just so people understand,
I'm not talking about usage rate. I'm just talking about like, the sort of orchestrating and the influence he's going to have on the offense, and that sort of order of things is going to, you would expect him to have a larger role and do more stuff and be more comfortable, all that stuff, when the restrictions are gone and he's feeling more comfortable. You can't have it both ways. I don't know anybody who's sitting there arguing that, like, Luka, it shouldn't be Luka as the primary, the primary orchestrator, your primary point guard, the offense running, however you want to phrase it. He is, by all accounts, one of the 5 best players on the planet, and he's 25 as opposed to 40, like the other option that they have. And, LeBron has at times, certainly over the last season, deferred more to try to make things run more through AD, to try to have things run more through Austin Reaves over the course of this year, especially. And so you're not going to do those things and then be like, I'm sorry, Luka, no, I am not going to give up the ball to Luka. And what I think is exciting about this is when Redick talks about being able to put the, teams in a blender. There was a great possession in Saturday's game where you can see the Luka has tremendous gravity just based on what he can do with the ball. He gets a ton of attention, a ton of eyeballs on him, and understands how to manipulate defenses because of that. So he's in the right corner as the Lakers are on offense, or near the right corner, goes on the wing, dribbles down across and draws like 2.5 players, makes a skip pass to LeBron in the corner. LeBron, who had, I think, in a similar situation, kind of shot a 3 that they close out. He's attacking the rim basically before the ball even gets to him. Gets an easy blow, it's a blow by the defender. I forget who it was. And he goes in for the dunk. This sort of thing. It's not going to look exactly like that every time. Defense will scam. But LeBron and Luka, and to, I think, a lesser extent, but still an impressive extent, Reaves, are like supercomputers. The first 2 especially. And they will be able to see the weakness in whatever it is that defenses are doing. And so as long as they're all engaged with each other, somebody is going to have the ball. And the argument for it to not be Luka Doncic, to me, doesn't make much sense.
The elephant in the room, if you were trying to figure out what would be a problem, is obviously LeBron. And look, like I said before, LeBron is going to have his fingerprints on everything that happens with this team moving forward for as long as he's on this team, because he's LeBron James. And forget just the status, the talent alone says that's what makes sense. But the idea that for those who were looking for the inevitable clash between these two, and for the record, that has never included you or I, Brian, we've been saying over and over, it's going to be fine. But like, when the Lakers traded for Luka, they kept this thing quiet. And I mean, to the point where LeBron and Rich Paul, Anthony Davis, Luka, nobody knew about it. And the unspoken but obvious part of that was, you are messaging that it is Luka's franchise moving forward. He is priority number 1, even if that means ruffling LeBron's feathers in the process. And while I'm sure on some level LeBron didn't like this just because he can understand what it means, and nobody likes the idea of, moving down a rung in the, importance ladder, there's been no signs whatsoever that this is actually upsetting him. There's a difference. Like, Rich Paul was recently on Gilbert Arenas' podcast, and he said in so many words, had this deal, had we been aware of it, it likely would have fallen apart. We understand why it happened this way. We're fine with it happening this way. And one assumes that Rich Paul speaks for LeBron in here. Like, the data and the eye test show he has been yielding the usage. LeBron is also agitated over the last couple of years for more help this season, saying the margin for error for this team was largely non-existent. He is now working with a better player than Anthony Davis. LeBron deservedly has an ego, but unless his ego was just steeped in massive insecurity, there's nothing to complain about here.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Andy. I'm not even sure. I know you said he may not like it, but he accepts. I'm not even sure he doesn't like it. I think
I just mean what the idea of
There's
everybody.
there's really nothing not to like.
I just mean the symbolism, that part.
I see
specifically the symbolism piece of it. It is. I am no longer the most important person in this franchise. The symbolism of that is something.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, because it's an interesting concept, but also too, what exactly does that mean? Not the most important person, and what does that mean for if you're already LeBron James? We'll get to that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass. Every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's really simple. When any player drops 50 or more in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off on an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. So whether you're staying up really late watching highlights or just need a midnight snack, use Dash Pass to grab something really great when you're still saving big. You can get maybe a little lunch on the go with Dash Pass. You get your favorite meals with 0 delivery fees, reduced service fees, and again, you save even more with this exclusive NBA offer. After 50-point performances, sign up for the Dash Pass and be ready to save when, again, 50 or more from any player this season. Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders. Participating merchants, you must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more.
I think, a quick reminder, by the way, the newsletter, the Locked on Lakers newsletter. We're not just a podcast, Andy, that you can find on iTunes. Please subscribe there, or Spotify, places like that. We're not just a YouTube program, which some of you are watching right now. We're also a newsletter. You go to lockedondaily.com, you click on Locked on Lakers, and you can have the show as well as analysis from around the Locked on NBA channel delivered to you every day. Great way to keep up on the show and keep up on the league.
Katie Heindel is one of the writers there, and she's one of the best out there. So, yeah. I mean, really, you're getting good coverage.
So one of the interesting, we'll get back to this Luka LeBron thing here in a second, but I do want to note, as the Mavericks come into town on Tuesday, a highly anticipated game for reasons I can't quite put my finger on. But, the Lakers, with the win in Denver, moved into 4th in the Western Conference. They're, statistically tied with Houston, but currently are 4th. So they're only 2 games behind Memphis, who lost on Sunday, and the Nuggets. And, the Rockets are in a bit of a slide. The Clippers lost on Sunday. The Timberwolves lost on Sunday. Oklahoma City beat them. So now you're looking at it, and the Lakers are actually statistically much closer to the 2 seed in the West. The Grizzlies and the Nuggets tied. Lakers are 2 games behind both of those teams than they are the Timberwolves at 7. They are 4.5 games now clear of Minnesota for the 7, and 3.5 clear of the Clippers. And they play the Clippers a couple times coming up soon. So, we talked about it for the special, the post-game bonus episode. That was a huge game from a standings standpoint. And then you get a little bit of help on Sunday and things look even better.
Things have been really good for the Lakers of late. It's funny. There's
they've won, I believe.
It's funny because there's so much to kind of reconfigure your brain around with this team, just in the sense that they went from a team that profiled as all offense to then profiling as all defense, and then shifting back and forth. And that's before you end up swapping out Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic, which will just by definition completely change the face of your team and the identity of your team. They have become a better defensive team, like more consistently during periods where they didn't even have Anthony Davis, the best defensive player on this team. They've been doing it often in very unconventional ways. You know, as I like to say, they're not small, but they're not traditionally big either. And there's just a lot of
in the sense that they play a lot of minutes without a normal five.
Right. And some of their forwards are pretty big, and some of their guards playing with those forwards. Like, you don't end up a small team in the aggregate, but you end up smaller than the Lakers have been, like, at their most successful version. And just, we entered this season thinking that they could be good, but not necessarily great, and trying to think about them as a great team while working off admittedly small sample sizes before you even start thinking about the Luka piece of this. There's just a lot of, I don't know, reconfiguring going on, and you have to be both very open-minded about what you're seeing without being a prisoner of the moment either. Like, it's a really interesting time just to be evaluating this team.
It helps, obviously we watch every game, we're following every practice. We see so we've seen this arc take place. But one of my favorite examples of how an evaluation can be made of a team or a player, and it takes time for everybody to catch up. You go back to when D'Angelo Russell was drafted instead of Emmanuel Mudiay. And, it seems like a silly argument now, but like at the time, this was like, Mudiay came out and just destroyed people for like 2 weeks. D'Lo got off to a really slow start. For the rest of the season, D'Lo was kind of a bust. Mudiay was like this kind of like, oh, well, okay, Mudiay is really good. D'Lo. The rest of the season, Russell completely outplayed Emmanuel Mudiay. Took a while for things to catch up. You look at where they are now, and it's really hard, like you say, because so much of the change, like they were better than people had decided they were very ordinary and they weren't going anywhere. They started to play better before before the trade. But the evaluation of the team didn't really catch up. It's like people almost forget that when the Lakers traded for Powell, they were in first place in the Western Conference. But because Andrew Bynum had just got hurt, it seemed like, oh my God, they're headed for disaster. Well, they weren't. They'd actually shown they were really good to that point. The Lakers started to fix things, and then they got this other moment of upheaval where people weren't quite sure. And so it seemed to me, just kind of casually checking social media, looking at the post-game evaluations, of like, it does seem like that Denver game, given how Luka played, kind of clicked something in to where you can't, like, they're fourth in the conference right now, two games out of second. Like, you kind of can't ignore the Lakers anymore.
I mean, I think some of it has to do with beating Denver in particular.
Oh, a lot of it has to do with beating Denver.
Because Denver's beaten the Lakers in the playoffs 2 seasons in a row. Denver is seen as a championship team. They're only 1 season removed from actually winning a championship. So it created this image of the Lakers not being as good as that championship measuring stick. Anthony Davis not being as good as Luka Doncic. Then you start getting into LeBron's age. You also, I mean, if we can let people behind the curtain a little bit, you and I have worked in media for a long time. We've worked in different organizations. We've worked at ESPN, it was still with ESPN, The Athletic, all sorts of different places. A lot of pundits get very self-aware about not wanting to look like they are hyping the Lakers. If I'm just being completely honest about this.
True. Absolutely true.
They do not want to look like the team that's glazing the Lakers, because then they hear from a lot of people, oh, you're just part of that hype machine with the Lakers. So I think they are often, I don't want to say reluctant to ever give them credit, because it would make it sound like this team has been playing championship level ball all year and nobody's been acknowledging it, because that's not accurate either. I just think there can be a reticence to acknowledge when the Lakers are even just playing well, especially given that they haven't made any, other than that Western Conference run, their playoff, since winning the championship, their playoff runs have been largely uneventful, and they missed the playoffs 1 year. So I think that can be a factor in it. And again, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves either. I don't want to be prisoner of the moment.
No.
And like I said earlier, there's a lot of reevaluation going on in real time. I just think, similar, you hear now still national media talking a lot about how the Lakers defense, which has been phenomenal for like a month and change, there's only so much you can trust it because like LeBron is in there and LeBron's not playing defense. Like LeBron's been playing defense for like,
right. That's the thing. It's like, and we don't do, let's attack the media. Let's like take down people's opinions and like it is admittedly like I have opinions about the rest of the league, other teams, whatever. Like I may or may not be really well formed because I don't watch every game, even like I don't see every Rockets game. I watch as much as I can. I try to keep up. I do watch every Lakers game. I see every Lakers game sometimes more than once. And so, you sometimes don't see these things unless you're looking at them every day. And it can take a high profile win like that one because it changes the context too, like you said, about this one team that has just killed the Lakers and they just couldn't seem to solve. And what the difference isn't just Luka. It's the fact that you've got Dorian Finney-Smith and replacing D'Angelo Russell, who was admittedly a catastrophically bad matchup in those Denver series. It's like it is a different team. And those old paradigms just may not apply nearly as well. And then you look at another one like, well, the Lakers did really well with Oklahoma City. Like last year, the AD LeBron Lakers really did well with that team. Well, with Chet and Hartenstein and all these other, it may be different now. The Lakers may be a terrible matchup for those guys. We'll find out. But there is a lot to think that is really sustainable about what they're doing. So we'll get to that and kind of go back and button up that LeBron Luka conversation as well. We'll do that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout a game, so even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can combine live bets into a same-game parlay, and features like the live betting feature makes it awesome because every moment of the game becomes exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally because that's what I want to see happen, or picking a player to hit a clutch three because it's drama. Like, you never feel like you missed out on a chance to get in on the action. The app's really easy to use. When you win, get paid instantly. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
So one of the things, Andy, that I think is going to be fascinating to watch, because we talked about the Redick comment about where the offense is going to be centered around. It's going to start with Luka Doncic and work its way out from there. But he said, look, we're going to be staggering these guys throughout a game, and that means Reaves, LeBron, everybody's going to have stretches of game where they are the guy that it's running through. And one of the things that I think obviously they need to, it's still going to take a little while. It worked great on Saturday, but it's going to look different other games. Teams are going to throw stuff at them. They're still going to struggle with zone, whatever it might be. The thing that I think is really, that Russ, I think, can really panic other teams is that if you're staggering those three guys throughout a game, that means LeBron, it means Luka, it means Austin Reaves. It means those guys are going to get significant time against second units of other teams. Like you're going to see a lot of times where like you're going to like LeBron and Reaves out there together, or Luka and LeBron, or Luka and Reaves, or whatever, or just one of the things. At times when they're going to be able to kind of feast on lesser talent. And I think that is one of the things when you have LeBron and Luka, usually you have Denver has Nikola Jokic, who is he's the best player on the planet, but he can't play 48 minutes. And when he's not on the floor, it's real different. When Luka isn't on the floor, you're going to have a lot of times LeBron. When both of those guys aren't on the floor, you are certainly going to have Austin Reaves. There's never going to be a time when all three are healthy and not one of them's on the floor. And so just from a matchup game management standpoint, that creates tremendous leverage for the Lakers and is going to put LeBron, it's going to put Reaves, going to put these guys in situations where they're going to get to be aggressive against kind of groups of players they haven't been seeing over the course of their career.
It's interesting, like just getting back to the Saturday's game against Denver and how the matchups now just become different. And it's one game. Obviously, Michael Malone is going to be strategizing for the next one's coming up relatively soon. So we'll see how much of a carryover there is. But just this team being so different now, like Denver used to have the natural cover for Anthony Davis and Jokic, and a pretty natural one for LeBron and Aaron Gordon. And then you could figure out everything else from there, particularly when Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was around as a perimeter stopper. He's obviously now in Orlando. But now, this incarnation of the Lakers, they don't have defensive answers for Luka and LeBron. Like Aaron Gordon cannot guard both of those guys. Michael Porter Jr. can't really guard either one of them. Christian Brown is too small for any of the Lakers scorers other than Austin Reaves. Like Rui now becomes much easier to work offensively into mismatches. Like there's no natural or significant assignment defensively for Jokic anymore. And to sort of anchor whatever Denver's doing defensively there. Like, again, Michael Malone is a really good coach, and he was working off very little game tape in terms of how the Lakers look with Luka, particularly when Luka actually looks good and looks like himself, and how this is all going to work. But a lot of what was going on before against Denver no longer applies. And
Correct.
A lot of what was going on with the Lakers against multiple teams no longer applies.
100%. And like, it's not a question of, is Anthony Davis better or worse than Luka? Set that aside. I mean, he's not as good as Luka Doncic, but he is better at some things than Luka is. There's no question. It's just, you're so different. I think it is really important in the Denver matchup, just to like, they can look at it and be like, none of that old stuff applies. And I think that'll help them mentally with that matchup. How it affects the other ones, I don't know. But
we touched on this briefly in Saturday's reaction show, but Denver is such a pivotal matchup for the Lakers just because they've been knocked out twice by them. And there's the psychology of not just losing to this team a lot, but losing when it's been really close. Like the two playoff series, the 8 losses they had in 2 playoff series were by like a combined 50 points in all 8 teams. I mean, all 8 games, which means it's been legitimately close. So on one hand, all you keep hearing is you're not championship material because you can't beat this one team. And this one team has been the thing you can't overcome. But on one hand, it's been legitimately close. So it can feel like it's within arm's reach. But then it's like, okay, if it's been this close this many times, maybe the truth is we just can't reach the extra 5%. And it just, you can't tell me that the Denver thing has not been in their head. And we know this also because JJ said after the game, like, we prepped our asses off for this game. Like, this game was important. And like I saw, predictably, whether in our comments section or like in the Locked On Nuggets or on social or whatever, like Denver fans crowing about the idea that, like the Lakers treated this like game 7 or whatever. And, it's not the same thing with Denver. It's like, you know what? You're right. Like,
True.
You are correct. Like, the Lakers did treat this with playoff importance. And guess what? They won by 23.
Well, I was about to say they did, but they won by 23. It's not
Right,
like they won by 2.
If you, it's not even about like 16 banners versus 1 or anything like that. It's like, what's been going on now, the Lakers have needed tangible proof that they can beat Denver decisively, control a game against them.
Yes.
And they got it. Where it goes from there, I don't know, but it matters. Like, it really does matter. And there's nothing for the Lakers to be ashamed about. The idea of they treated this game super important. Good.
I referred to the problem with Denver as a last mile problem. People know that as like, in logistics, you can get the thing built and you get it there, but then like how do you get it from the warehouse to the customer? Like, that kind of thing. Like, it's that last mile to getting your product delivered. And then, like, the Lakers couldn't figure out that last mile. And some of it was in those last miles. Denver's execution was always better than LA's, always. But part of it was ultimately you could just tell that that Denver believed that the Lakers were going to make mistakes, that they weren't going to be able to raise their level. And ultimately you could also see that the Lakers kind of maybe believed that too. And so that part of the last mile problem is gone. It could reappear in other ways. The matchup, I've seen people in the chat saying like, Denver is going to adjust. Of course they're going to, like, the Lakers aren't going to be able to do this over what they did to Jokic or Karl Anthony Towns. Like, teams are going to see that and they're going to adjust to it. And there will be nights where it won't work. But that doesn't mean that the Lakers can't, win a series. The Lakers will have their own adjustments that they try to make. But fundamentally, you got to, first and foremost, you got to believe that you can win. And that's the thing that I think the Lakers got back to insofar as Denver is concerned. And then from there, I don't think there were a lot of other teams that they didn't think they could beat. And they might find out they're wrong, But like I said, I think Oklahoma City is a completely different matchup now with Hartenstein available to them and playing quite well than they were last year. And so I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what the Clippers look like in a 7-game series. I don't know, but all I know is that the team is playing very well. They were playing very well before Anthony Davis was traded. They've played very well in games that Anthony Davis wasn't available for, pre-trade and post. They've sustained their defense against a variety of teams. And while they bleeped the bed against Charlotte coming out of the break, and those Utah games didn't exactly inspire, when they needed a game to lock in, they did, and it looked really cool. So I'm excited.
Yeah, a few things too. First of all, as Krazu pointed out in the chat, when I was going through the banner count, I was subtracting the Lakers and Denver 17-1. That's how I landed on the Lakers having 16 banners. They clearly have 17. I was doing too much in real time, but obviously 17 banners total, 16 banner difference between them and Denver. Thank you. It obviously matters. The defense too, like the question of sustainability. It's interesting. They've made changes in terms of their approach. It helps to have personnel that is new this year, whether you're talking about the presence of Dorian Finney-Smith, the healthy availability of Vando and Gabe Vincent, even a guy like Jordan Goodwin, who he has clearly cemented himself a place in the rotation.
Yeah, we'll talk about that Tuesday, maybe.
He's really been good. He got a lot of minutes, including second half, fourth quarter minutes against Denver, but he is a defense first player. You know, LeBron, we talked about it before, the commitment that LeBron has demonstrated over like the last 4 to 6 weeks defensively. It removes the permission structure for everyone else not to be attentive. It also raises the onus of everybody else to match what the geezer's doing out there. I think it also, there's, I'm sure, some degree of AD is no longer there to erase mistakes. So we all need to be better because, you know, when we covered the, you know, Kobe Powell teams, we heard from plenty of guys saying, yeah, you know, it helps having Powell and then Andrew Bynum back there. Like even guys like Kobe and Fisher and Artest, you know, Trevor Ariza, these were very good defenders, like dogged defenders. They would acknowledge, like, yeah, we know Drew is back there. That makes a difference.
It's always a combination of personnel, you know, DFS, Vanderbilt healthy, Gabe Vincent much better than he was before. Like it's personnel
and some schematic things that JJ's been doing different as well.
And it's attitude and it's commitment. And it's all that stuff. Tuesday's obviously a huge night. I think, you know, people are setting the over under on Luka points in Tuesday's game at 50, 55. He's certainly going to be highly motivated. Well, we'll get you ready for that game, break down a few more things that are happening in the Lakers rotation, all of it tomorrow. But anyway, in the meantime, Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can hang out with over 32,000 subscribers. Thanks to the 1,300 people who are watching this thing all the way up until the end. We certainly appreciate you. Welcome if you're new to the channel, and we will see everyone tomorrow.